Welcome to the table. Sit down and let's chat.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to At the Table with Monique. Here we have real conversations with real people sharing their real life stories. I'm your host, Monique, and our special guest today is Patrina. Hey, Patrina. You guys don't know how happy I am to have her at the table because I've had to cancel because of illness. She had to cancel because of illness. But here we are, two healthy people here to have a conversation to share with you all. Yes. So if this is your first time listening to this podcast, I want to welcome you to At the Table with Monique. And if you have been listening to this podcast, I would like to welcome you back. As you all know, before we get into any conversation, we always have to have snack time, because what is a good conversation without a snack? If you don't have a snack, especially if this is your first time, I want you to take a moment, go get your snack, and then come back.
Grab a snack and come on back to the table.
Welcome back. We are going to let Patrina go first, but we do need to say our grace. We need to thank God for the food because it is only because of Him that we have what we have. And this is my dedication to my great-grandmother, Lucille, who always taught us to say our grace before we have a meal. So, Patrina, if you would please bow your head with me. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this food that we're about to receive. We ask that you allow it to bring nourishment to our bodies. We thank you for health and strength because, as I stated, God, both of us have had some illness, but you have healed our bodies, and we thank you for that. And if there's anyone listening right now that may have sickness in their body, Lord, we ask you to touch them and heal them and give them strength. We thank you for this and all other blessings in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
So tell us, what are you snacking on today?
So I decided to bridge both of my cultures, right? The two cultures that I've been recently living in. So the first is my Kilimanjaro infusion tea.
Nice.
From Tanzania, and we have Mount Kilimanjaro just a ferry ride away from us. So I have my tea. And the second I fell in love with when we were in Rwanda. They are called haldirams, and they are an Indian snack.
Oh, okay. That looks good.
So there is a large Indian population in both places. And so this is what it looks like. And it is just absolutely incredible. They are great for just snacking. I put them in salads. They go everywhere I go, and I eat them all the time. It is my go-to snack.
It looks like it would be delicious in a salad.
It is, yes.
Yes. Because when you have a salad, you don't want a boring salad. You don't just want like lettuce, tomato, cucumber. You need some texture, some crunch in your salad. Yes. Can you tell us a few of the ingredients in that snack?
Yes. So the haldirams, it is chickpeas, flour noodles, rice flakes. So it literally looks like cornflakes inside of them because of the little rice flakes. Let's see if I can find one. It's like a little
Yes, it sure does.
And there are lentils in it as well. So it's an amazing, healthy snack. And it's just really good and loaded with flavor. The amount of flavor in this thing is just incredible.
And you know what? That would be a good party food. You know how when you go to parties, you have, like dishes with nuts, and sometimes you have mints and little crunchy snacks.
Absolutely.
I may have to visit the local, we have a local Indian market. I think there's 2 Indian markets here. See if I can find some haldirams.
Yes, you will love them. You will not be disappointed, I promise.
Nice. Okay. So let me tell you guys what my snack is. And it's a very simple snack. As you all know, I am from the state of Georgia, still living here in Georgia. So I thought it would be fitting to have peaches.
I love it.
Yes. So there's a local like farmers market nearby. And so I went in there the other day and they had like just
Oh,
baskets and baskets of fresh peaches, and the smell
yes.
that was coming, like to smell. Oh, Patrina, we do eat on this podcast. So
Yes.
please
Thank you.
eat your snack, drink your green tea, because I'm about to have, this is my first peach of the year. So let's see how this tastes. It smells delicious.
I'm
I mean,
slightly jealous.
if I could rub this on my neck, it would
Yes.
be the perfect perfume. Okay, here we go. Mm,
Oh,
good.
that's therapy. Thank you for that.
This is good. You know what would be better?
What?
To put these peaches in the oven for a few minutes.
Mm.
Baked peaches with just a
With
little bit
some
of
rum
cinnamon.
and rum
Oh,
or bourbon?
that that would be nice.
Yeah,
That would be really nice to make a glaze.
absolutely.
Hmm. If I send you a picture later, just know.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
About those peaches.
yes, these are so good. So, tell us, how are you doing today?
I am fantastic. And so happy to be here. Finally, this is a journey, and I believe the timing is just right.
Good, 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 good. I'm so happy you're excited because I'm excited. And we are continuing our series about living abroad. I know I have a desire to live abroad, and I'm sure there's someone listening who has been thinking about it, and maybe they just don't know where to get started, or maybe there's some fear, right? And so I hope that in listening to this conversation today, that it will help you get over some of your fear and help you prepare, or just if you don't want to prepare and just take a leap, do it. Okay.
Absolutely.
So before we get started, tell us a little bit about you. We're going to save the questions, but just tell us about you, who you are, where you're from.
Okay. So my journey has been quite an interesting one. Of course, our meeting is in Georgia when I was a student at Armstrong. Um,
Yes.
but I am originally born in the US in South Carolina, but I've moved around most of my life. And so I was destined to be a nomad from a young age. I was always the child that was out roaming the woods, always lost to everyone else, but found to myself, right? Um,
Uh-huh.
and I kind of raised my kids that way. So I have 5 kids, and I moved around a lot with my children, and because I always wanted them to know different cultures, different perspective, different places, different people. Um, and then it's just, my journey in the long journey led me to Vermont to study my graduate studies in sustainable development. And it was there that I truly fell in love with the art of travel abroad, and went to New Zealand for several months, and I was like, this is my place. I need to live in New Zealand somehow.
Mhm.
Um, but that didn't happen. Came back to the States and was like, okay, there's something that's brewing here. But my
Mhm.
grad school we had a cohort of 70 students. Of those
Mhm.
70 students, 60 of them were from different countries, right? So
Oh
I had
wow,
this
that's amazing.
amazing exposure to cultures and people and food. And I was like, yes, this is my jam. So it was like, and I wanted to visit all of them in all of their countries that they lived in. And that was kind of what started, like really starting the journey of, I am somehow going to live abroad. I don't know how I'm going to make it happen, but that is going to be my legacy. That's going to be the lasting part of my journey. When people think of, what is Patrina doing? They're going to say, oh, she's somewhere on the road.
Yes, and like you said, we met at Armstrong. Um, I think it was I think I was just getting into Facebook around that time, but you know how things go. We all become Facebook friends, but you know, wasn't really into it. And I have seen you move around, just like you said. And I think it's amazing that you are not afraid. And if you are afraid, you're doing it very well, right? Um, and I think that it's great that you wanted to expose your kids to different environments, different cultures, not just where they were born.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. So tell everyone you're in the States right now for a visit, but tell everyone where you currently reside.
I currently reside between Zanzibar, which is an amazing island off of Tanzania, so East Africa, and France in Paris. So we split our time between Paris and Zanzibar.
Yes. And so when we had our first conversation, I asked, "Oh, it's not pronounced Tanzania." You said, "No, it's pronounced Tanzania." And can you please
Yes.
explain to everyone why it is pronounced Tanzania?
Yes, and so the beauty of it, Tanzania is the amalgamation of Tanganyika, which is what it was before. So Tanganyika and the island of Zanzibar, which is comprised of Unguja and Pimba Islands. So it's two parts of the archipelago there. When those two of sorts or three joined forces, they became the land of Tanzania. So the Zan part is for Zanzibar. So it's Tanzania, not Tanzania. So that's the beauty of it. It was Tanganyika and Zanzibar.
Nice. Thank you for that because um someone may be questioning why she's saying Tanzania, not Tanzania as as we commonly pronounce it, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes. So how did you start your adventure to Tanzania?
Oh goodness! So that was kind of fun. So the funny story: February 2021, my partner and I went to a wedding in Arusha, Tanzania, and it's a friend that I met from grad school. It was her sister that was married. So grad school for me became my new family. It was an extension of me.
Mhm.
So this family is Cameroonian, but this particular sister, so funny. So they're Cameroonian. Sister lives in Ethiopia, but they were married in Tanzania, right? So we went for the wedding, and we did not love it. We did not love it. It was the process of getting there that we didn't love because Qatar Airways, who is the best airways in the world, they lost our luggage.
Oh
So
no.
we were there for 3 weeks with no luggage. And all of our things for the wedding, all of our gifts that we were entrusted with, we had clothes that were made in the States that we were taking for the bridal party. None of that stuff arrived. So
Oh
it
my
was
goodness.
horrible. It was horrible. And so every day they were like, oh, your stuff is coming. And it didn't come. So every day we were scrambling to find clothes, including the day of the wedding. And the day of the wedding, there were two ceremonies. And it was a nightmare. And so our first journey to Tanzania was not that great. But what they do is they give you a 1 year visa. That 1 year visa costs you $100, and it is a multi-entry visa. And so we're like, we're here. We're probably never going to come back because of this experience. Thank you, Qatar Airways. Um, and and we just kind of left it there, right? So we
Mhm.
came back to the States, didn't think about Tanzania anymore. But when we came back to the States, I was also in the process of working with another friend from grad school. He's Rwandan, and he was telling me about this organization that he started where they do trauma healing in Rwanda. And I was so inspired by the work he was doing. I said, I want to come and work on the ground with you. I want to be in Rwanda. I want to breathe the Rwandan air, and I just want to be there with you to do this work. And so the journey actually started in Rwanda. And so we get to Rwanda. Things were fantastic. Rwanda is an amazing country. We were in Kigali, in the capital.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful, beautiful. Oh my gosh. And I tell you, it is an amazingly beautiful country. It's like the rolling hills. Rwanda will
Oh,
get you fit. If you do not want to be fit, do not go to Rwanda.
okay.
Rwanda will make you test your religion, right? It's like everything is uphill, and it's like 45-degree incline, and the whole time you're walking up, and we're not talking just one, the sidewalks are even on an incline like this. And
Wow.
so it's like, oh Jesus, if you just let me make it up this hill, I promise I'm going to do better. Right.
Oh,
And it was an amazing time to be there. But what happened was long story short, we weren't able to be in the country to work for that organization. There were some steps that should have been taken to make sure that we
mm-hmm.
could be there legally. Um, and those steps weren't taken properly. And so we just ended up being tourists there for the graciousness of the Rwandan government. They said, we will allow you to be tourist here for 3 months. And after that, you got to go. Um, so that was the
What
journey.
did you do for those 3 months?
So actually, so what we did, we did work for the organization.
Volunteer.
Volunteer, right? But even, and that was the thing, even for volunteers, you could not be there because there's a process. And this is, those things that people need to understand when they are going abroad. There is a process, right, for any type of work, whether it's volunteer work or whether it's paid work. And what I found is the process is actually the same when people are coming from other countries to the US, right? There is a visa application that you have to go through. And we now know that you better make 100% sure that all of that is done before you get on a plane,
Mm.
because it would be a tragedy to get somewhere with an expectation and they turn you around and say, so bad, so sorry, too bad, so sad. And
Mm.
that was essentially what we found out, because there's a process in Rwanda where even for volunteers, there's a website that the government has set up, and you have to post. Well, first, your organization has to be registered with all of these entities. And, I won't go into what they are because for this,
Mm-hmm.
they're kind of secondary. But the organization needed to be registered with all of these agencies. Then they had to post even the volunteer positions so that Rwandans could apply for the volunteer
Okay.
positions and
Mm-hmm.
gain that experience, as opposed to having an outsider come in forward.
Okay.
And they just did not fulfill those requirements. And so the government was like, no, 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 we're so sorry. They can't be here. We're happy to have them as tourists. And then we need to make sure that they're gone. And so we did. But again, while we were there, we still spent time with the organization, because again, the work they do is absolutely beautiful. And I wanted to see it because,
Mm-hmm.
even if I can't do it with this organization, perhaps I can do it elsewhere. So I need to know exactly
Mm-hmm.
how they do it so that if I endeavor to try to replicate it somewhere or use some part of it, I can say this is exactly how it worked on the ground.
Right. So you're in Rwanda 3 months as a tourist,
Yes.
and then they say, "Thank you. We hope you enjoyed your stay." And so, what? How did your next journey begin after that?
So so understand nothing about life. Our life is smooth, right? So,
Okay.
and I think that's a part of the journey.
Mhm.
So we decided, in our infinite world, we decided, you know what, we're just going to leave before the 3 months are over. And we're not going to let anybody tell us what to do. We're going to leave on our own terms. Care for what you wish for.
Okay.
Because the universe is like, I hear you. And we had the unfortunate where my partner's father passed away in France.
Oh no.
And so New Year's Eve, we essentially we spent New Year's in the sky. And so his father passed away December 28th. And December 31st, we were on the plane at midnight, crossing from Africa over into Europe, heading to Paris. And so we ended our year in Rwanda and we brought in the year in France. And so we spent 3 months. No, sorry, this time we spent 2 months in France. And then we were like, so what are we going to do now? We don't want to live in Paris, not yet. Um, and then we opened our passport books and we were like, so we've got a perfectly good visa for Tanzania. And that's how we got there. But then we were like, we don't want to go to Arusha. What else can we do? And I've always been fascinated by Zanzibar. Since I was a child, I've always been fascinated by this mysterious island, this mysterious culture. And I proposed that we go to Zanzibar, and that is how we landed on the island of mystery.
So what is it about what is it about Zanzibar that has captured you since you were a kid?
So, so I remember my first time hearing about Zanzibar. I was in the seventh grade, and I was we had a Model UN in our grades in middle school. So Model UN, and I was Model UN also in high school. And my country in the UN, in the Model UN, was Tanzania. And so it's amazing because I thought about this earlier in the year. I was like, it's amazing how the universe brings things to fulfillment. Um, Tanzania was my country, and I had to argue for their freedom, right? I had to argue for their status. But then there was this independent island off of the coast that belonged to nobody, right? And it was the fact that it was this independent island off the coast, and it still had all these elements of the Omani Empire, and it was just this thing that was shrouded in mystery that
Mhm.
Tanzania wanted to own. And it was like, how does Tanzania become, how do they win this island over and not Kenya or another place, or how does it keep its independence? So
Mhm.
it's fascinating because it was a self-contained, self-managed island that its foundations of sorts. There were people that lived there as fishing villagers, but just the way the Omani Empire, you're like, they came a long way from home to get this little
Mhm.
islands, out in the Indian Ocean. And so it just fascinated me. It's like I wanted to know the people. And so yeah, and it's just, and me, I was that curious child. And for me, that was the pinnacle of my curiosity. And almost 40 years later, gosh, not that long. Wait, seventh grade, I was how old? I'm going to
Seventh
say
grade, I
30
think
years
you're
later.
okay.
30 years later.
Yes. What, seventh? I'm trying to think. How old are you? Like 12 years old, 11 or 12?
Yeah. Yeah. So
Mhm.
30 years later,
Yeah.
I get to
Yeah.
be in this place that I always found so fascinating. And gosh, it really is fascinating. It is.
I think that is amazing. I think it's a blessing that as a child you were introduced to this place and now you get to live there. And you didn't plan on it. You didn't plan
No,
on it. You were like, they
no.
were like, "Hey, sorry for the hiccups. Here's a visa. Come
Right.
back." Yeah. So, how long have you been in Tanzania?
Tanzania, yes.
Yes.
So we've been there. I can officially say we've been there. What is this month? We're almost entering June. So going on 6 months that
Okay.
we've decided we're going to call this home.
So what is required for you to stay there?
Um, a visa first off.
Hmm.
So we immediately when we landed there, we renewed our visa, even though we still had time from the old visa. We just
Hmm.
automatically went and we renewed, and we got another 1 year visa. So the way the multi-entry visa work, it's 1 year multi-entry, and essentially they ask you how long do you plan to be here, and what most people say is, they look it up and see what the maximum amount of time is. And so you say, I plan to be here for 3 months. They stamp you with that time frame. And what you
Hmm.
need to do at the end of that 3 months is take you a lovely ferry ride if you're on the island. So for us, it's a ferry ride to the mainland. And then we take a bus to Kenya and we get our passport stamped in Kenya to say we left Tanzania.
Okay.
And then we come back. So a day trip in Kenya. And then we come back and we're like, yes, so we fulfilled every requirement that they've asked of us. And so when we came back the second time, we're like, oh, we're going to be here for up to 6 months. And they gave us the 6 months because we fulfilled our commitment of, we're good stewards of the time that they gave us. And so this time we have 6 months. We'll do something similar. We'll probably go to South Africa or Namibia, take a holiday, and then we'll come back and get our visa stamped again. And that's just the way, that's how you do it.
You, I love the word holiday versus vacation.
Yes.
That is yes, because that's what Europeans say. I'm going on holiday. I'm
Yes.
like, it just sounds so sophisticated.
Absolutely.
Versus, what are you doing for the next week? I'm going on vacation. No, darling.
Um,
I'm
I'm on
going on
holiday.
holiday.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay, there's one more word that I think is so cute. Instead of saying vitamins, vitamins.
Vitamins. Yes.
Vitamins. Yes. Did you take your daily vitamins?
Yes. But if you mix it with some tomato sauce, it makes it a little bit easier to go down.
Yes. Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes, I love it. So you're in Tanzania right now. Do you work?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
So again, I I take a client when necessary. So I am a coach. I'm a positive psychology coach, and that might be with individuals or with organizations. And right now, I have a contract with KPMG, and when I'm done with that, I may or may not take on another client in terms of coaching for profit. Um, but again, the universe takes you right where you need to be because I coach social entrepreneurs on the island. And it's my pay it forward kind of work. So it's my love work,
Hmm.
and right now it's just I'm giving of myself. So I'm in the mode of giving, and uh, and probably later in the year I will relaunch myself fully as a coach, but a different type of coach. And so for every paid client that I get, I will gift a client as well. So it would be a full out pay it forward. So my clients that pay will essentially pay for me to coach someone in a developing nation.
I think that's beautiful work. And you have a some companies out there like Tom's.
Yes,
If you buy a pair of shoes, they give a pair of shoes. And I believe there's a
absolutely.
sock company as well. I can't think of the name of it, but there's a sock company.
Bombas.
Yes,
Yes,
yes, yes. So I think that's very generous of you to, you know, give of yourself, because there's some people out there that may need your help, but they may not have the funding right now.
absolutely.
Yes. And with your help, right? In the future, they may be able, well, we're not going to say maybe, they will be able to sponsor someone else. So they'll be able to
Absolutely.
pay it forward.
Absolutely. And it's the gift that keeps on giving, right? And I just think about the pretense in which we landed on the continent of Africa, right? this time around. My first time was purely a pleasure trip in Ghana, but this time around I went to work with a doctor in an organization to do trauma healing. So there were some very particular things. There is a doctor in Zanzibar that I met by is accidentally on purpose, right? Because the universe always has a purpose. So I met this doctor accidentally on purpose who had just started a foundation called Rafiki Smiles. And Rafiki, if you're a Lion King fan, that was the baboon. So, but
Yes.
Rafiki means friend in Swahili, right? And so Rafiki Smiles gives reconstructive surgery to people who have palate clefts and any type of facial distortions, because that was what he suffered with as a child. And his two surgeries were gifted to him. His first surgery was gifted to him by the Indian government to close up the palate. And then the second, he had a complete reconstructive surgery that was gifted to him by the Chinese government. And that's where he studied medicine. And so he is now back in Zanzibar and doing his own version of Pay It Forward. And the universe allowed our words to collide. And so I am supporting his journey through coaching. And so and again, so by no mistake, there was no mistake that these things didn't work out the way that they did, because the universe had a different plan for me, and I needed to be in Zanzibar to fulfill that.
Wow. I just think that's amazing. And if you've ever seen someone, for those who are listening, if you've ever seen someone who has a cleft palate, it can really affect their self esteem,
Absolutely.
their quality of life, their speech. And so for this gentleman to have received this gift and now he's going and he's paying it forward and he's helping others, I just think it's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I love it. I know when I tell you I love I love this version of my life so much. It's just to be able to pick and choose what you do, when you do it, how you do it. And it's interesting because it's I at first thought I was like, gosh, this is vastly different. But honestly, the same struggles that you see here in the U.S. are the same struggles that they have on the island, and there's always a constant. There's a barrage of people who say, "Oh, support me and me alone," and so that was an interesting mindset that we had to get used to. Because people say, well, oh, it's hard here on the island, and we don't make a lot of money, and so you should support me. And as the newcomer, you have to figure out, like, how do you navigate these waters and not be broke, right? Because
Right.
everybody wants you to support them, and you can't. Right? So we had to learn how to support and where to support, and our best method of supporting. Because in addition to meeting this amazing doctor, I fell in love with the most incredible little creature called a bush baby. And
What is a bush baby?
gosh, I wish I had one here that I could show you. Um, but a bush baby is a type of lemur, and
Okay.
they have like whole hands, like whole people hands. It is the most incredible thing you've ever seen. And I'm like, you come at me with these little weird hands, and their eyes are giant, and they like to stick out their tongue at you. But oh, I'm in love with the bush baby. Right? So, and there's our journey to bush baby started with this little old gentleman. His name is Baba Kumba. And Baba raises bush babies. And so he sends kids out into the woods to find abandoned bush babies. And
Hmm.
he raises them, he hand feeds them, um, he feeds them milk, and just Baba gives them this most incredible and amazing care. And he's been doing it since he was 6 years old. Baba is now in his mid 70s. So it's been a part
Okay.
of his life, but so much so that he even lives outside so that
Really?
he never he never takes them out of their natural habitat. His habitat is essentially a makeshift shanty. He has a covering for when it rains, mosquito
Hmm.
nets to keep mosquitoes away, and that's it. That's his home, his indoor outdoor home, so that when he raises these bush babies, they are free to encourage and indulge their natural instinct as they're growing stronger. And so through that, we kind of adopted Baba and the bush babies because he's in the latter part of his life. And we decided, how can we best support Baba and the bush babies? Because I love what he does. I love him so much. And we love
Right.
those bush babies so much. So we started a fundraiser to be able to support Baba. And
Really?
yeah, and so then it was like, how do we do the fundraiser um, and introduce people to this part of our world? And so, again, how you decide to pay it forward. Our version of pay it forward was we will work with local artists to commission products. And so so I'll show you some of the things that we do. So this is a beautiful hand painted card.
No, that is very beautiful.
And this card is from a local artist. And what he does, he hand paints our cards for us. The
Hmm.
paper is handmade paper. So we support the woman who makes the paper. And we support the artist who meticulously sits down and paints 200 cards for us, all different designs. And
Those are
then
beautiful.
we sell these cards, and a portion of the proceeds goes to Baba and the Bush Babies. And so now we've supported a local woman who makes this. We support the local artist who meticulously hand paints, and we support Baba, and we bring amazing work to other people who may not be exposed to these little exquisite pieces of artwork that we have at our disposal.
So, where can someone purchase your cards?
So right now, um, our Etsy store will probably be up and running very soon, like today. But we have them on our Instagram, and they will probably be transitioning to Facebook very soon as well. But on our Instagram, we are so my partner and I, we're Patrina and Philippe. So we are two peas out of pod, right? So we
Oh,
jumped
I
the
like that.
pod. So,
That's
yeah.
cute.
So yeah, so we are the number two, the letter P, PS underscore out a pod. So yeah, and so that's where you'll find them.
So, so you're shipping the cards from Tanzania.
So the cards will ship from both Tanzania and the US.
Okay. Yeah, I want you to share that information with us again. And do you have some cards with you besides the two that you showed me?
I do. What kind would you like to see? Would you like to see animals? Would you like to
No,
see
I'm going
cute
to be in
pets?
Savannah next weekend. I want some of the cards.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I'm coming there. My niece Jade is having her first recital. And so I'm coming there. So I want some of those cards.
Perfect.
Yes.
Yay. And you
So
get to
now
take
I get to support Baba.
Yes, and you get to take a little bit of Zanzibar back with you. And so
Yes.
on the back, we have so our stamp, those are the colors of Zanzibar. So the waters of the Indian Ocean are those deep blues and aquas and teals. And so even our stamp, this was a handcrafted, handmade stamp. There's a
That's
local
a
artisan that makes the stamps. So when I tell you everything in this card is handmade except the plastic,
right.
everything is.
So I know that there is an organization called Fair Trade.
Oh,
Are you familiar with Fair Trade?
I am not.
They so both of I think our connection at Armstrong was because we had natural hair. I think that
I
was
think so. Yes.
because because when we went to Armstrong, natural hair was still becoming like popular in the
Yes.
2000s. You
Yes.
know, not that it natural hair is nothing new. It just like made a resurgence in the
Yes.
early, 2000s to the mainstreams. And so I think that's what our connection was. And so I used to use shea butter on my hair.
Yeah.
I won't say I use it a lot anymore because it's really hard to find good quality shea butter because so many people are buying the shea butter, they're cutting it with other oils. And so
Absolutely.
you're not getting, um, you're not always getting a true
Yes.
product, right?
Yes.
But I remember there were some stores that had their products were registered through fair trade, so you know that one, it was a genuine product, and the money from the product was going back to the folks who made it.
Oh, I love that. Okay.
Yes, yeah. So I'll try to look up more information about it, but yeah. So shea butter is why I know about the fair trade.
Wow.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, but okay. I want to know because there may be someone who wants to move. Did you have to have any immunizations before you left?
No, none.
Okay.
No one asked. No one cared. um, but I will tell you this. So
Mhm.
this was kind of the, ooh, you got me, right? All of our traveling, no one, so 2021 was a lot of travel. When we first arrived in Tanzania, when we were on the mainland in Arusha, the hotel that we were staying at, they required either proof of vaccination, COVID vaccination, or a negative lab. And that was just for the hotel, not for the country. So we went, we returned back under the same pretense like, oh, the country is not requiring proof of COVID vaccine or a negative lab. And I looked on the website, and on the website, I saw where it says it was optional but not required. Um, and then when we landed in Zanzibar, they were like, oh, yeah, no, you need to show proof of either the negative test or the COVID vaccination. And so it was $100 a pop for both my partner and so
Ooh,
I'm like, oh, it hurt. So,
yeah.
and then the following week, the Tanzanian government issued an official declaration that there were no requirements for COVID whatsoever anymore. I'm like, well, great, thank you. Can we have that that $200
Right.
refund? Right.
Right.
So, but otherwise, no. There was no one asked about any other vaccines. And I know I've had several people reach out to me most recently and said, do I need yellow fever? Do I need X? Do I need Y? And so this is from our perspective. Do you need it? No. Does the government require it? No. And when my partner tried to get his yellow fever vaccine last year, because
Hmm.
someone kept telling us, oh, you should at least get it, he was not able to get the vaccine in the US because they told him they were only giving those vaccines to healthcare workers.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So it was interesting. And then the other thing that we're often asked is about malaria, right? And so I always tell people, so things you need to know about malaria. A, there is no vaccine for malaria. Um, there is no inoculation that you can get for malaria. What they give you if you want to try to give yourself some type of immunity against the malaria, they give you tabbies that you have to take. And so you start taking these tabbies 2 weeks prior to your trip. Then you're
Hmm.
supposed to take these tabbies the entire duration of your trip. And if you're going to stay, I don't know how they justify that. But if you're doing a long trip or you're returning back, then they require you to take the tabbies for 2 weeks after your return from the country that may or may not have malaria host mosquitoes. So what I tell people, do the research on your country that you're going to and the
Mm-hmm.
particulars of that country. There's no occurrence of malaria in Tanzania within the past 40 years.
Okay.
So
Well, that.
Tanzania can pretty much say that they are almost a malaria free country. You can't keep mosquitoes across the border. They don't have borders,
Right.
right?
Right.
So,
They're like, oh, can't go
I
there.
can't go. There's no malaria, right? So,
Right, right.
and Rwanda was another one. There was no occurrences. There've been no occurrences of malaria in like several decades. And so I just tell people, do your research on the country that you're going to and look at the occurrences. And all of this is public information. It just,
Mm-hmm.
takes a few minutes to look it up, and everything you need to know is there.
Okay.
And then just be cautious, because in truth, the tabbies don't, there is no guarantee that the tabbies will give you what you think you're getting.
Yeah. Well, that's good information because I know a lot of folks may be hesitant to travel because they may think that they have to have a list of immunizations
Nope.
prior to leaving the U.S. Um, so when you decided to move to Tanzania, did you have housing secured before you moved there, or did you find it like once you got there?
Yeah, no, we were like, I think we may have a hotel lined up.
Okay.
When I tell you, nothing was in stone. There was nothing secure. So we arrived at the airport. The one thing we knew we had was a ride from the airport.
Okay.
And he said, we're going to try this hotel. And fortunate for us, the little hotel that we found, it's so cute, Kilele Square. We found a secure place to stay, but we found an amazing friend. That was the most important part, was amazing friend. To date, when we go back, we're going to go visit his family on the mainland and visit his father's cow farm, because they have these the rams are, oh my gosh, incredible, and they're Maasai, so we're going to go and spend time with Maasai when we return, and so making friends with him, he was able to say, let me check with some people that I know to help you find housing. And
Mm-hmm.
then we just kind of got in the streets. We were going through visiting different vendor shops, and every vendor shop that we went in, I was like, hey, we're looking for an apartment. Do you happen to know of any place for rent? And that was how we ended up finding our apartment.
Nice. So is that common to, just ask around? I remember when I was in Italy, I was in the military and we had a housing office, right? But one of the local nationals, he was like, "Hey, my friend has an apartment." And that's how I found the apartment that I lived in. So I didn't need the housing office, and it was a beautiful apartment. Like I can close when I close my eyes, I am there. Like I am. I dreamt about that place about a week or so ago. But yes, I am there. The hardwood floors.
Oh,
Oh man, the balcony off of the living room. Oh my goodness. I feel like I'm standing there. Okay, this is
oh my
about Patrina. So let
gosh.
me
No,
so
I'm in
tell me
Italy
tell
with you.
oh my goodness. I can smell the bakery that's
Oh,
right down there. Oh,
yes, 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 yes.
yes. So tell us about your apartment.
So we love our apartment. It's great. Uh, again, careful what you wish for, right? We wanted a great apartment, and my thing was I want to be in the heart of everything. This was our first week, right? So we're still getting to know the island. We are Mzungu. We are proper Mzungu. I am so side note. So we stopped telling people that we were American and French because the
Mm-hmm.
moment you become American or European, people don't see you anymore. They just see dollar signs and they think that you're wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh no, 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 no. You got the wrong ones. We're the poor Americans. But thanks for that. So we just started telling people like, oh, we're from Alaska. And while Alaska is a part of the US, they don't know that. so,
Okay. Now, and what does Mazungu mean?
so Mzungu
Mazungu.
was
Okay.
was a term that was essentially coined for Europeans that were entering different parts of Africa. And so, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get this totally right,
That's okay. Do
but
your
it's
best.
somehow with like the white Europeans would come and they would walk in a circle trying to figure out where they were going. And so it's the two words, Zuni and something else, but it essentially means to walk in a circle. So,
Okay.
and that's how they know that you are not one of theirs because you tend to walk in a circle because you don't know where you're going. So you're Mzungu. And so
Mazungu.
it was designated for white Europeans, but now anyone from any place that's not home, you're Mzungu, right? If you're not from there, you are Mzungu. And we still walk around like this, like where are we going? Right? Because we still get lost. And because Zanzibar, so we live in Stone Town.
Okay.
Stone Town is the heart of Zanzibar. It's called Zanzibar City. And I mentioned earlier that it was Omani Empire. So Stone Town was built by the Omani Empire and they had sultans. So these beautiful coral reef palaces that were erected to pay tribute to these amazing sultans that we later found while there was a sultan, the sultan was for show because it was still run by the British Empire. But we are right in the heart of it. So it's like, it's the pulse. It's like New York City.
That's what I was imagining.
Oh, it's like, it's always on. And
Mm-hmm.
our apartment is right in the middle of Stone Town. And what we were fast to find out was that we live behind the second most photographed door in the island of Zanzibar. And even our door, it is a marvel. So every tour that you
Uh-huh.
take, anyone that takes a tour of Stone Town, they end up in front of our door. And so our windows are set up as such where we can see out, but you can't see in. And so we just kind of sit and we listen to the stories. And we peek at people. And then when we're feeling really curious, we make all these random sounds and people are looking like, where is this noise coming from? And it's us.
That's hilarious.
In our window. But the door itself, it's a marvel. It's this beautiful, beautiful. What did he tell us? It's not teak wood. It's ebony. It's ebony and something, but it is. Our door bears the symbol of the royal palace, and so
Really?
and then there's also these huge brass spikes on the front of it that they said was designed for Indian warfare. Not Indian, sorry, for elephant warfare. And so if elephants were to come and try to get entry, they would be impaled by these huge brass spikes that are on our door. It is, it's a
Ye-
breathtaking door.
I need to see a picture of this door.
Yeah, let me see if I can find a good picture really
Yeah,
quickly.
I need you to send it
I'm going
so
to send
that
you a
I can.
picture.
Yeah, so that when I do the reel to announce your episode, we have a picture of that door.
Yes.
I love a beautiful door.
Oh my gosh. So you
When
will love Zanzibar.
Yes, I'm sitting here thinking like, when can I visit Patrina in Zanzibar? Like, oh
So,
man.
so let's talk about that, right? So we are always encouraging people to come and visit us. No one has taken us up on this yet. And then when we tell people, we're like, let me tell you why we're in Zanzibar right now. So our rent when we left the US was $1,800.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we paid in rent. Once you factor in your utilities, your food, your transportation costs, we were easily spending $3,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Our monthly expenses in Zanzibar are less than $1,000.
Really?
Our
That's
rent,
amazing.
our apartment, everything is included. Our electric, our gas, our Wi-Fi, everything is included. Our rent is $500 per month.
Wow. I I don't think I've ever paid $500.
Facts, right?
Even when the economy was a little bit better, I don't ever remember hearing anyone pay
Yeah,
$500 US
yeah,
dollars.
yeah. No,
That's amazing.
yes. And then, the rest of our expenses, we eat out. If we didn't eat out, our expenses would probably be $700 a month. But we eat out, and and
Mm-hmm.
and we like to travel the island. We walk to the fish market every other day for fresh fish, not fresh farm raised fish. We're talking
Right.
fish straight out of the Indian Ocean. We watch them bring it from the boat to the fish market, and we go and we negotiate the price that we pay for fish. We have eaten a Dr. Seuss book. We've had red fish. We've had blue fish. We've had, you know, and it's the most amazing thing. But this beautiful blue fish, it's now we know it's called a parrotfish. Um,
Uh,
we had half of a fish, and we negotiated. And I was upset because we paid 15,000 Tanzanian shilling for this fish. And I'm like, oh, that's too much. We negotiated it to 15,000 shilling for half of this amazingly beautiful blue fish. But that 15,000 shilling, it was like $6
wow.
fresh
Wow.
off the boat.
Fresh off the boat, yeah.
Yes.
In the US, I mean, even if you were in some area where you could get that, you're still not paying $6.
No, no,
No, no, you're not, I mean,
off the
if you
coast.
were a restaurant, maybe,
Maybe. Yes.
maybe, because you're buying in bulk, but you as an individual, no. Yes. So, do you guys have a lot of expats in Zanzibar?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And it's really interesting. So most of them do not prefer Stone Town. Stone Town is busy. And there isn't a lot of room for growth in Stone Town. So and Stone Town is the it's kind of central, but it's on the western part of the island, and you can see Dar es Salaam, you can see the mainland from Stone Town. So the waters are very calm. You don't get a lot of airflow on that side, and then you have all the structures, and so Stone Town is a little hotter than anywhere else on the island because the buildings are all so compact and there's not a lot of airflow.
Mm-hmm.
So people, the Mzungus and expats tend to visit Stone Town, but they live in other parts of the island. So the most popular spots are Nungwi, which is the northernmost tip of the island, and Paje. And as so in Paje area is for the people who are totally into water sports because
Okay.
it's directly at the Indian Ocean. It is just wide ocean, so the wind is choppy. It's there's kite surfing, kite sailing, any type of wind sport, water sport. That's where you do it on that part of the island. And when we were visiting, we were in one area and we had to remember that we were in Zanzibar because we're like, where in the hell are we? Because it was just, it was all white people. It was all European.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
it was just like, whoa, what is happening? So this entire area, we had to look for other brown skinned people.
Wow.
It was incredible.
Yeah. So, do you know some of these expats? Are you friends with some of the
So we are learning. Again, my husband, my partner, he's French, and so we're definitely, we're making peace with the French communities, and because he wants
Mhm.
bread and pastries, and so we are learning some of the expats that are coming there, setting up shop. But what's really interesting, so in Stonetown, there's a sweet guy who essentially he's becoming our Zanzibar son. He's from California, a young guy. His name is Roderick, and he's 25, and he's been there for 3 years. And so we're like, so when we started talking to him, we were like, "What do you do?" He's like, "Nothing," and I love it. I love it. You can come there and do nothing, and it's okay. But he was telling us that for a while he was getting into some import and export because
Mhm.
sea moss is harvested on the island, and we have a
Mhm.
particular type of sea moss that we have there. So he was getting into the sea moss business for a while, and then Zanzibar is known for its incredible spices. So most spices that are in your house have their origins on the island of Zanzibar, and
Really?
that is a part of a lesser known slave trade. There was a slave trade in that part of the world called the East Indian slave trade, and it was all about spices that were grown on that island. They never, the people of Zanzibar, they were enslaved and they worked between the two islands, between Nguja and Pimba, because they were, as we were told, they were weak. They're not big people. They're part Portuguese, part Omani, part African, and they just have they. You can tell who the locals are because they just have a very petite structure, um,
Mhm.
and so they were like, so they didn't really trade their own people in the slave trade. They kept them on the islands to work on the spice farms, but slaves came from China, from India, and from other parts of Africa via this guy named Tipu Tipu, who was a huge slave trader, the largest in East Africa, and he was a Zanzibarian, and so he kind of plundered all of East Africa, East and Central Africa, to sell people in the slave trade, and many of them went to Europe. Some of them went back to China. So it's very interesting that slaves were coming from China, but some African slaves were going to China, to India, and then to the Caribbean islands as well. So,
Oh, wow.
so those spices crossed over with them. And so when they took spices into different parts of the world, those spices went with the slaves who learned how to harvest and grow them. And, courtesy of them, that's why we have some of the amazing spices that we enjoy now.
What are some of the spices that we can find in our local stores that are harvested there?
So clove is the primary spice.
Mhm.
Peppercorns, black,
Mhm.
red, yellow, and green peppercorns are harvested there. Cinnamon, um, lemongrass. Zanzibar is the second larger exporter of lemongrass outside of Asia. Um, oh goodness, what are some of the others? And it's so amazing because we've been going into the forest, and so it's
Mhm.
just to understand that cinnamon is the bark of a tree, right? And so
You're right, right.
and they cut the bark when you go there, and they let you smell it, and they give you a piece of the meat, and you chew it like a gum, and you
Mhm.
get the high from that. But let me see what else. Star anise
Mhm.
is there.
I
I'm missing
Those are
something.
all common spices that are used, especially during the holiday season.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So that's probably right. What, 3 months, 4 months, right before the holiday season? There's probably a lot of exporting going on.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes. So it's interesting to learn that there's such an intimate connection with this place.
Yeah. So, I like to talk about food, right?
Yes.
I want you to tell me, what is a typical meal, because you guys eat out often. So, what's a typical meal there?
Okay. So it depends on what you like.
Mm-hmm.
I love seafood. So in Zanzibar is the place for seafood. I love octopus, and
Mm-hmm.
they have perfected octopus. Just like, oh my gosh. So I typically have, when we go out, I'm either having Indian food, because there are some amazing Indian restaurants, both East Indian and Western, because I do kind of cycle between being vegetarian and not. So it's
Uh-huh.
nice that I have these options available. But most of the time, you're going to find me sitting in front of a plate with various types of octopus and squid. So it might be an octopus carpaccio, which is some finely sliced octopus and olive salad on the side. And then some grilled octopus, which is basically just the beautiful tentacles that have been grilled to perfection. And some squid and some local prawn. So the local prawn is interesting. It takes getting used to. It doesn't really have it has a neutral taste,
Flavor.
and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, if I think about shrimp, as we call them in the US, they're not prawn. They're prawn when you travel elsewhere, but I think about South Carolina shrimp are like, oh, so good and sweet. If you've never had a South Carolina shrimp, they are just like the best. It's just this beautiful sweetness. And then you have Gulf shrimp, which are a little saltier, a little brinier. And then you have Georgia shrimp that are just interesting, right? So so the ones in Zanzibar, they're interesting. They almost have a neutral flavor like the ones in Georgia. And with that, they can almost become anything. And so you'll typically find me in front of a really lovely seafood platter that
Yeah.
was local caught.
So, how about the produce there? What are some local produce that you find at your markets?
Okay. So that one I love. And one of my produce finds was a total aha moment. So they're these beautiful little things. They look like little cucumbers, but they're squash. And they're only about this big. They're like really
Uh-huh.
little tiny babies. And I'm like, oh, these are so good. But why are they only so big? And we were out visiting Baba out at his compound. And there was this really crazy dried up thing hanging from one of the trees. And I was like, Baba, what is this random thing? And he
Yeah.
said, well, that squash that you picked up at the market when we were out? And I was like, yes. He said, that's the squash. That's what happens to it. He said, you don't know what that is? And I said, no, Baba. He went and opened it, and mind blown, it was a loofah.
Really?
So, like, my brain exploded, and they had to put it all back together for me. It was like, so the loofah is an edible squash, but you have to harvest it within its first 4 to 6 weeks, because once it grows and starts to dry out, it is where we get our loofahs from.
Wow.
Mind blown. It was like a total moment.
Right.
So that is one, and I was like, and it's a multi-purpose food. If you don't get to eat it, then you can wash with it, right? So,
Exactly. Like, just let it sit there. Is it going bad? Not really. I'll be able to scrub my skin and have
exactly.
soft skin. Well, listen, that's a produce that keeps giving, because when we eat our fruit and vegetable, it helps us with our skin. And if you don't eat your fruit and vegetables, it'll dry up and it helps you with your
Your
skin.
skin, absolutely. So I was so blown away by that. And so when you come, I have some seeds for you. I will give you some loofah seeds. You can plant them and see if it will grow for you. Um, but that is one. So lots of beautiful variety of squash that are different than what we have here in the US. You have your standard, you can find cucumbers. Cabbage is plentiful. White
Mm-hmm.
cabbage, red cabbage, and you typically get that when any restaurant you go to, you're going to get a
Mm-hmm.
cabbage salad with your meal. Carrots are plentiful, so these are things that you kind of know what they are. Broccoli is plentiful, and some herbs. So you can find cilantro. You can also find mint. So these are the standard things that one would know. It's like, oh, I know what these things are. But then
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of beautiful greens that we had to be introduced to, like dodo. Dodo is this amazing green that is in the spinach family. And the flavor is amazing. It is so, so good.
I wonder. Okay, so whenever I go on vacation to Jamaica, their spinach is called callaloo.
Yes, yes.
Is dodo similar?
So dodo in Callaloo, so they also have Callaloo. They
Oh my
are
gosh.
same family,
Mm-hmm.
one strand away from each other. And so the leaves, you can look at the leaves and tell them apart. But yes, they also have Callaloo there.
Oh,
I know.
I listen. I could sit in front of a bowl of callaloo and I can eat that all day long.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yes. For breakfast, when I'm in Jamaica, I have grits with callaloo. It is
Ooh.
not served that way. I combine it because with the hotel, one of the hotels that we stay at, they have a complimentary breakfast. I don't need anything else. I just
I
need that bowl of
know.
grits and callaloo. And my friends are like, "That looks so good." I'm like, "Yes, it's
Yes.
I'm sorry. All right,
No,
we're supposed to be talking about you."
no. But even with that, so I love how that you talked about breakfast, right?
Hmm.
When you're on holiday, depending on where you are, it makes you rethink about breakfast because we're so used to, grits, eggs, and porridge, whatever breakfast looks like for you in the US. But through our traveling, we've just found breakfast to be such a very different thing. And so when we're in France, breakfast is bread from the night before, right? So
Hmm.
you have a piece of bread, you toast it up, you put some butter, jam, cup of coffee. That is what we have for breakfast when we're in France. And if you're hungry or fanciful, you have a nice egg over easy. Um, when we were in Switzerland, our continental breakfast was prosciutto. It was like this beautiful bread and bread, meat, and cheese platter with fruit. So there was like prosciutto, sopressette, like hard salamis, and then there was like this variety of cheese, and then there were a
Hmm.
few savory pastries, but it was nothing like I'm like, gosh, I could eat breakfast here all day. And so,
Hmm.
and now being there, breakfast, especially if we go out or we're at a hotel, we might have some form of soup or stew. Gosh, and there's just like this beef soup that they make that I could die in it. It's like it's so so good. I just want to crawl in the pot and die happily, right? And it's like some greens, typically either some dodo or some callaloo with some carrot and onion sauteed in them, and it tastes amazing. A hard boiled egg and some local bread, and that's what
Hmm.
your breakfast is. And so I love how it forces you to rethink about what breakfast is and is supposed to do, because in many places that we go to, they look at breakfast as really, it is the protein, it is that thing that fuels your day. And so
Hmm.
they load it, and it's loaded with protein and all of these healthy fats, as opposed to the not so good for you things where you're going to hit that slump at 11, 12 o'clock because you've ended your sugar crash or something that you've had here.
You know what? When I went to Paris I think I went in May of last year. Um, One of the questions I asked about breakfast, and they were like, "Oh, we have a traditional international breakfast," and it was a lot of what you said. They had a variety of breads, cheeses, different slices of meat, but they also had, because I don't eat meat anymore, but they had a good selection of fruit and vegetables. And
Mm-hmm.
so for breakfast, I had fresh slices of tomatoes, cucumbers, melons. I mean,
Yes.
it was so nice to have breakfast there, and then the variety of jams that
Yes.
are, oh my goodness. Oh, it was it was just perfect. And honestly, like a lot, like I'm just going to speak for a Southern breakfast, okay? Southern breakfast is grits, pancakes, waffles, smoked sausage, bacon,
Yes.
eggs, shrimp and like smothered shrimp,
Yes.
salmon cakes. I mean, that is all going to put you in a food coma.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Oh, and don't forget the biscuits.
Yes.
I Now I
Yes.
have never eaten biscuits in gravy. I know a lot of Southern people,
No have I.
but I've never had it, and if I have it now, it would be a vegan version of it. So I don't, but I've seen all these videos about folks trying biscuits and gravy and them just going crazy about it. But that white gravy on
Mm,
top of the biscuits
no thanks.
just doesn't look appetizing to me.
Same.
Yes,
Same.
being a Southern girl, our gravy was always brown.
Right. Okay.
Right. And so either you browned your gravy by, browning the flour, or you use like kitchen bouquet
What is that?
to get. So kitchen bouquet is called brown and serving. So you put it in your gravy to give it a brown color. Some people may even use a little bit of soy sauce to
Oh.
brown their gravy. But yeah, it is like taboo to have a white gravy
Wow.
in the South. They're like, what is that white gravy? Especially, okay. So I remember I made some turkey wings and my gravy did not have the right color. Oh, my family was roasting me. What is the white turkey wings? You have to have the gravy. If you don't have a brown gravy, just expect to be roasted by your
See,
family.
I love that. I have never made gravy, so I don't. But that being said, that white chunky stuff just no thanks, no
Yeah.
thanks. Pass,
And
hard pass.
right. But gravy, some people think it's hard to make. It's not hard to make. You just have to pay attention. You do
Okay.
have to watch it. So when I make a gravy, you want to use a fat. So I use like a vegan butter.
Okay.
You can use traditional butter. You melt it, and then you want to slowly add in your flour.
Okay.
It helps if you whisk the flour in with the fat.
Okay.
Okay. So for those who eat meat, if you have some bacon grease left over, you can use that to
Interesting.
make your gravy as well. But you have to have a fat. So have the fat and the flour, and you're constantly mixing it until it has like it's a paste.
Okay.
Okay. Once it's a paste, I wouldn't add cold water. I would have maybe room temperature, or if you have a small pot where you can boil some water and you want to slowly add in your water into the paste. And you stop when it's the perfect thickness, and just know as your gravy sit, it will thicken some more.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I promise you, it's not hard to make gravy. You just have to pay attention.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I thank you. I can't promise that I'm going to try to make it because it's my partner. He's Frenchman, and they love their bechamels and
Mm-hmm.
their roux with creme fraiche, and so he's the sauce man of the house. He's the sauce man, and he's also our salad dressing go-to person. So we will never buy salad dressing ever again as long as he's alive, because he is the go-to guy.
Nice. So I got some more questions for you
Yeah.
because there may be someone that, there's like either they may say, you know what, I may want to visit Zanzibar, or maybe I want to move there. So tell us, like, what do you guys do for fun there? Is there a nightlife for those who may want to have that experience?
So for fun, he swims every day. He is an ocean goer, and so
Mm-hmm.
this is life for him. He's swimming 7 days a week. Um, so for me, the primary drawback of Zanzibar for me, hold on. So Zanzibar is pretty dang hot, right?
Okay.
It's an island. It's a tropical island. It's hot, but it's not 100-degree hot. It is 85-degree hot, and we are
Mm-hmm.
in Stone Town in the middle of the buildings. There's a little airflow, and so it's hot and it's humid. So I typically don't come out of the house until after 6 o'clock.
Okay.
So I get my walk very early in the morning when it's
Mm-hmm.
cool and before it wakes up, and which is an incredible time to be out, because if you go out prior to 6 a.m., you get to see all of the things that you miss when people start coming out of the outside. Like we were like, oh, there is a whole I Love Zanzibar whole Z and Z thing that we were there for 4 months and never noticed it, because it's right in the Darajani market, which is one of the big produce markets. They have produce, spice, uh, meat, and everything. We never see it because there's always a million people out there. So
Mm.
walking one morning at 6 o'clock, I'm like, what is this building and what is that building? Like, it's the age of exploration. So I go out very early, and I walk. It's a very safe place to be, very beautiful, very welcoming. And I watch the sun come up on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
Then after 6, we go back out because there is a night market that happens every
Mm.
night. And there are
Really?
food stalls and vendors that are preparing your food right
Hmm.
on the spot. And so
Mm-hmm.
you get to sit there and have an amazing local meal and
Mm-hmm.
enjoy the ocean, watch the boats coming in and out, watch the sunset, and it's alive. It is like, this is where you want to go if you're a tourist. This is where you get to really interact with the locals, because when you get your plate of food from whichever vendor you get it from, if you
Mm-hmm.
want, and the food looks like it's seafood, it's chicken, it's shawarma, it's local soups, and so it is. You can properly get anything that you might crave at that night market. They give you a plate of food and they say, find a place to sit, and so
Mm-hmm.
you can sit on the wall along the ocean, along the line, but you are right there fundamentally with the locals, and so it's an amazing opportunity to just interact with local people and other tourists that are in the area, and the cats. So Zanzibar is loaded with
And
cats.
okay.
It is properly cat island.
When you said that, it made me think about when I was in Mexico and the night market, and I could see stalls with bright lights, pots
Yes.
being, because you're scooping something out of it, the sizzle from the grills, like
Yes.
all the aromas, like I could see that.
Oh
And
my
like you
gosh.
said, there's like open seating. There's no seating that's designated to any particular restaurant or vendor. You just find a place and you sit down.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
that sounds wonderful.
It's incredible. And then I became fascinated with, so the local drinks, right? So there's a lot of sugar cane there.
Mhm.
And just to watch them press the sugar cane and make
Mhm.
sugar cane juice. And so, and they take pieces of ginger. Oh, ginger is another one of the spices that is major there. We're the second largest grower of ginger outside of Asian continent. Um, but they take the ginger slices and they take
Mm-hmm.
lemons. And so the lemons are this big and they're green.
Like a
And
lime. Mm-hmm.
yes, but it's their lemon. And so, and they put that in the sugar cane and they put it in a press and they crank it out and they make sugar cane juice. And it is,
That sounds delicious.
oh, it's addictive. It is so, so good.
Yes. I could just imagine the spice from the ginger
Hmm.
and that bitter sour from the lemon and then the sweetness. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness. That sounds delicious.
it is amazing. And
I think I
so,
would want to drink that warm. Do you drink it cold
no,
or
and
warm?
so they ask you if you want ice. I don't take ice with anything. So I just want it fresh pressed. And so I
Hmm.
take it straight from the press to my cup, room temperature.
Yeah. Oh man, that sounds delicious.
It's like, and then when I was sick, I would, my partner would go and get it for me and I would heat it up and I would put,
Hmm.
so the interesting things you can find Jim Beam there. So when I was sick, I had to make my version of a hot toddy,
Hot toddy.
and I made it with sugar cane juice and Jim Beam. So
Nice. And I bet that was the best hot toddy you've ever had.
yes, it is every time.
Nice. Oh my goodness. So, um, hang on. We just talked about the Jim Bean. I want to know this. What is the primary religion there?
So it's a Muslim island. Yes, it
Yeah.
is 99% Muslim. Well, probably more like 95% Muslim.
Hmm.
So that was a bit of a, I'm not going to say a culture shock, but it was,
Hmm. Like
we don't,
adjustment.
yeah, it was
Hmm.
because we didn't know what to expect. Yeah, I read some blogs, but then I was like, you know what? We're just going to throw ourselves into it and we will figure it
Hmm.
out along the way.
Right.
Um, yeah, in the blogs, you'll read, that women should cover up and
Hmm.
you should dress modestly, especially if you're in Stone Town. But when you go to other parts of the island, it's a little more relaxed. And to some degree, it's true, right? So like wearing what I have on, like my dress and my shoulders out, I wear this there. Um, I did have this one kind of uncomfortable experience. I was out walking and I had on some running shorts but it was just like the stairs at my thighs. And I'm like, look, we're just not going
Hmm.
to play this game. Right. And so it was, it was a little uncomfortable, but at the same
Hmm.
time, I was like, you know what? I'm appropriate. Um,
Hmm.
but because we live there, I do try to do the work to make sure that I'm not drawing any excess attention to myself because there are enough tourists. When I tell you that you see just as many butt cheeks hanging out there as you do in the
Right.
U.S., it's there, so they're used to it. But those are the tourists, the people that are coming and going. But because we live there, I do when we're in Stone Town, I do tend to wear. If I'm wearing shorts, I try to wear them like a little bit closer to my knee. Um,
Hmm.
or same with my dresses, I try to wear them a little bit closer to my knees. And I do cover my arms, and I cover my arms because it's so hot and the
Hmm.
sun is so concentrated. And so I don't want burns. So I typically just wear like a linen shirt or something. If I don't already have on something that's longer sleeve, if I'm wearing something like this, I would put on a linen shirt over it. But it's not that it's because it's what I'm supposed to do for the religious part of it,
Hmm.
but just because I want to protect my skin.
Right. Okay. And so I know for most Muslim folks, they are praying multiple times throughout the day.
Yes.
So, can you tell us about your experience when you're seeing folks pray, and does that make you want to pray more?
So the prayer
Hmm.
call.
Hmm.
One of the things, especially because of where we live, everything was okay.
Hmm.
So in Stone Town properly, we are told that there are 54 mosques in Stone Town. Stone Town is not that big, especially to have 54 mosques.
Right.
But at 5:34-ish in the morning to hear that
Mm-hmm.
first prayer call, it is magic. It is the prayer call is the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. It's just this beautiful melodic thing, and what it did, it made me want to know, it's like, what is the imam saying? I'm like, first of all, I wanted to know, who is this? Is it something
Mm-hmm.
that's pre-recorded and they just play it every day? And what are they saying? And so just so happens the doctor that we are working with, he is Muslim, and so he's been explaining a lot of things to us, and then we learned that there is an imam that is doing the prayer call every morning. It is nothing pre-recorded, and each mosque has its own imam. Each imam is doing their own particular prayer call, and they go off in sequence. And so when the imam closest to our apartment is doing his prayer call, it is towards the end that you hear the other prayer call going out in one of the other mosque, and it starts to get fainter and fainter depending on where it's coming from. But it's so beautiful, and but it just really made me want to know and indulge myself in their belief system. And then what we're learning is, well, for most of the world, they think of, Muslim as the religion. We think about the religious aspect of it. It is actually, it's more of a way of life, what it
Mm-hmm.
means to be a Muslim. Practicing the faith is only part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is what are the tenets of being a good steward to your neighbor, to the world around you, and to the animals that you share the environment with, even, on every aspect. So it is a way of life, and it is incredible, because when I tell you, we live amongst some of the most generous and amazingly gracious people that I've ever met in my life. They are so welcoming. They go out of their way to make you feel welcome and feel comfortable, and they don't care where you come from in the world. They're just so
Mm-hmm.
happy that you're there to share time
Wow.
and space with them. So it's great.
Wow. You know, that's amazing. And I will say I I have found that to be true wherever I have visited. You find people that want to make you feel welcome.
Yes,
Yeah. And want you to also have the best experience while you're
absolutely.
there.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah. If there's someone listening right now and they're thinking, even if they're not thinking about moving to Zanzibar, but they're just thinking, you know what? I want to leave home, wherever home is for them, and I
yes.
want to go on an adventure. What advice would you give them?
I would say don't think about cost. And I think that's where a lot of people get hung up. They say, I
Hmm.
can't afford it. For me, we couldn't afford not to do it, right? So I would say work backwards. Find your plane ticket first. Let the price of a plane ticket dictate where you're going to start your adventure. Especially if you're not looking to move away, if you're just looking to have an adventure, just kind of play the Russian roulette of Google Flights and see what does it cost to go anywhere in the world, and
Hmm.
find the cheapest ticket that you can find
Hmm.
in what you deem to be a relatively safe location. And I'm take a sidebar on that, and I'm gonna say a safe location, because everywhere we've gone has been incredibly safe. And we've had our American friends that say, well, be safe when you travel. And for me, I'm like, I'm offended, because you never told me to be safe in the United States, when
Hmm.
we are a really dangerous country to be in, and
Yes.
you've never thought about my safety here. So thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah.
So that being said, go to what you deem to be a relatively safe place in the world, and just don't try to write a prescription for your adventure. Just let it unfold. And I think what you need will inherently find you. It really, it will, because we've not had a prescription for any place that we've gone, and everything that we've needed has found us. The people that we needed, the apartment that we needed, everything has found us.
That's beautiful. And I am going to re-listen to this, right? And think about that, because I do have a desire. I don't know for how long. I don't know if it'll be for a year, for 2 years, or forever. One thing that kind of keeps me anchored here is the thought of missing family.
Yes.
But as I would give other people advice, I would say that that's why God made planes and trains, right?
And now
So
we have these lovely screens. You can see everything.
you can, yeah. And so for anyone that's listening and you're thinking, hey, should I do it? That's why God made planes and trains. So if you need to go back to see your family, you can, and take an adventure. Take a chance. Yeah. And it's not always living out of the US. Some people just need to move to a different state, okay?
Yes. Or go visit a different state. It's amazing when you start traveling across the US. We totally fell in love with Oregon. And when we started the journey, we left Atlanta and we flew to California. And from Los Angeles, we took a train ride up the coast of California. Oh my gosh, 40 hours of coastline between California and Washington State. And it was the most magnificent thing ever. And I am so excited to explore more of that part of the US that I don't know. So go visit just another state and see that life is more than the four walls that you have.
Yeah. Well, Patrina, I want to thank you so much for coming to the table, sharing with us your snack, because I am going to go look for that snack. And thank you for sharing with us your experience living in Zanzibar. I want you to also send me your information, because I want to share your Etsy store with folks, because your cards are beautiful. And I want people to have an opportunity to get some of those cards.
Thank you.
Yes.
We'll do that.
Yes. And also thank you to the listeners of this podcast. Thank you for coming back. If this is your first time, don't be a stranger. You can come to the table anytime you want to. A new episode of this podcast is released every Thursday. If you want to be a guest, if you have a story you want to tell, if you have a topic you want to suggest, or a snack, please leave that information in the comment section. I'll also have my email address there, and you can find me on Facebook as well as Instagram at The Table with Monique. And until next time, you all be blessed and peace.
Join us next Thursday for a new episode of At the Table with Monique.